Welcome to Talk Common Ground with your host, Nicholas Monroe.
Hi, and welcome to Talk Common Ground. We're back for episode 5. To our return viewers, thank you for tuning in. For our new viewers, welcome. We have Dustin Castro, owner and entrepreneur Subtech Performance. Dustin,
Hello.
Thanks for making it out again. Chris Miller, Christian conservative talk show host of the Chris Miller Show.
What up, what up?
Chris, thanks for making it out again. And excited to announce a very special guest. We have Texas attorney, businessman, and former U.S. representative for Texas's 23rd Congressional District. He's the director of Election Protection Project of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, the Honorable Francisco Canseco.
Thank you.
Or better known as Kiko. And so thanks
Happy
for
to have
joining
you.
us today. Kiko, if you'd start us off and just tell us how you got into public service.
It's been a while. I have always been very interested in politics and in government and things like that. When I was very young, and not to belabor the issue, but I was in the 6th grade and we were beginning to talk about history, not Texas history like we had in the 5th grade, but just regular world history. And my dad, who was a child in Baltimore at the time of World War I, and I was there reading about it and having trouble with it, he says, I lived through that. So he inspired me, and I continued to follow through with it. But more to your point, I got very, very upset with the television back in the mid-'90s. I was throwing shoes at it and very upset, and I felt that I could do something better, that I had knowledge and experience. At that time, I was in my 50s, and I had knowledge and experience, and I can do a better job in serving people. And I ran my first race in '03. I lost, but I kept on being involved. And I don't know if everybody was attuned to it, but in 2008, I ran another race for the race that I ultimately won, and I lost again in the primary. But after that loss, I was encouraged by a lot of people that had supported me to do it again. I had a very interesting experience in Washington. I represented a district that was very, very large, from San Antonio all the way deep into El Paso and beyond. And it was a majority Hispanic district, and I won it from a Democrat. And unfortunately, it was a redistricting year, and the next time around, it was a very different district, and I lost. But I've stayed very active, and I've stayed very much involved right now with the Texas Party and also with what's going on in the nation. But with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, I've been neutralized because the Texas Public Policy Foundation is a nonpartisan organization. But what we do is that we research topics that are very important to the American ideal and to the American citizen, and try to promote those things, like the project that I'm heading, which is the Election Protection Project. We see a lot of faults that we're going to get into within the election process, and what is being promoted right now, and what is being the vogue in the nation to do, which really is a very serious takeaway from the real idea that it's one person, one vote, one citizen, one vote. And when they profess that being against that is suppressing the vote, what they're actually doing is they're suppressing our vote. So if somebody votes illicitly, they take away your vote. They take away your voice. So that's what we do at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. It's not the only thing we do, but that's what I do with them.
Indeed.
Very good.
They do a lot at the mothership.
So, and I guess Dustin and Chris, if you want to come in too, and Kiko as well, what do you see as some of the big pros and some of the big cons of the electoral process as it is right now in 2020?
Well, one of the things that that we can talk about is just the terrible voter turnout we have in the first place. I think we're number 26th amongst the countries. The OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, of the 36 countries, we're number 26th for voter turnout. And a lot of it has to do, in my opinion, is real. If you look at just basic problems, is just the election day itself. Having it on a Tuesday in November doesn't make much sense. And if you know the history behind it, like that's kind of one of the interesting things. It started in November because back in the day it was all about farmers, and it was all about making people have time to go to mass. So Tuesday made sense for the farmer that had to go to church. But we're in 2020, and there's not a lot of farmers that you go to church. There's a lot more people that have other jobs and people that are working 2 jobs. And a lot of times, if it's on a Tuesday, it's in the option of, do I need, can I go make money for my family, or can I go vote? So having it on a Tuesday doesn't make much sense. So I think one of the biggest problems is not having an actual national holiday. Another thing is just, we are in a digital age, and it is kind of brings to the question of, why can't we make this digital? If I can, send $10,000 via an app, and there's facial recognition, there's, fingerprint scanning.
You send $10,000 through an app?
No, but you can, you can buy and sell, you can trade stocks, you can do all these things. And again, your phone has a scanner for your fingerprint, it has facial recognition. So if we can do that, I don't see why the technology isn't there that we can't vote that way.
I can speak on the technology being just on the fact that it could be an issue, is because when I just went through the RPT, Republican Party of Texas, we just did our convention, and during that convention, it was the first one that they had ever done online, obviously. But such things such as the credentialing process and the process having to do with getting people to the correct polling and everything happening on time and everybody signing in and having their own validated sign-in was a huge issue, and it took a lot of time. We spent actually 8 hours just on one part of the election process, before we even did any voting. It was about credentialing people and then verifying the credentials. I see that it could be something that if we start working on it now and we start moving in that direction, then we could perfect it. Because obviously, just like the American spirit, we perfect anything. But I think that at this moment right now, with everything going on and the way that we've seen so many failures in that avenue, I don't think that this election would be a good beta test, seeing as so much is riding on and so many things are up for change. To have this system go into effect at this moment would be perilous at best.
Well, Kiko, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know if it's in all districts in Texas, but I guess the last primary election, you had a ballot, and then you also did the electronic, right? So is that almost like a receipt?
It's almost like a receipt. It goes into the machine, a paper that you've almost typed up from the machine and putting it in. And there are a lot of other ways, but I guess more to the point, I don't, and I hate to disagree with you, Dustin, I don't think it's the day. I think what really moves people to go to the polls and express their voice is 2 very important things. One, what really gripes you of what's going on? There was a time some 10 years ago when the federal administration was passing so many rules and regulations that businesses were really strangled, both financially, that they couldn't go to their bank, or with a lot of regulations on what they had to do on their shop and all that. So they were anxious to get out there and vote because that was an issue du jour for that day. But the other thing, too, is what energizes a voter to go out there and vote? They have to have some idea that they're going to go out there and make a difference by their one vote and express that vote. And it also has to come from the idea that, if you are a shareholder in XYZ company and you have the annual meeting, because of your shares and you're interested in following it, you're going to go out there and vote. Because if this new president gets in there, they're going to not give out any dividends or other things like that. So this is our country. We have a share in it as citizens. And we have to go out there and we have to express our vote. So we have to have from within ourselves some excitement for wanting to go out there and vote, whether it's whatever day it may be. And also, the candidates need to be able to inspire. And if the candidate doesn't inspire, if he's just there, Casper milk toast, or someone just vanilla plain and just bores you to death, you're going to say Tweedledee or Tweedledum. I don't care. You have to be able to see what the real difference is, and it requires the individual to be moved in order to find out what the difference is between candidate A and candidate B.
I think that right there is something that we can all speak to, in the fact that that's why we have so many issues with the lower down ticket, the down ballot people, because obviously the presidential election is a very hot election. We're going to see massive amounts of people coming out to vote that probably never came out to vote before in their lives. Just like when Barack Obama came into the scene, there's a lot of people that came out to vote. But when we come to elections, to me, the elections that really matter, like for instance, Greg Brockhouse lost by 1,000 votes. Mm-hmm. And in a city of 1.7 million people, he lost by 1,000 votes to Ron Nirenberg, who, I mean, and these things, they shouldn't have to happen this way. Like, if somebody, like you said, I'll guarantee you if that election was to happen again right now, he wouldn't win that election, because people have those gripes now. People see the type of governing, and now they've been ignited. But we have to, there is an inspiration that has to happen at every level to, especially down ballot, to be able to make these changes. We need to stop putting so much emphasis on the presidential election and put this emphasis back onto our local elections. But I mean, that's just my idea.
I want to get back to what you were saying, because I 100% agree with you on the fact that people aren't inspired by our leaders or lack thereof right now. And I feel like that's one of the biggest problems is if you look at both sides of the aisle, you have nobody really to get excited about. And I feel like we have America is a diverse melting pot. We're multicultural. That's one of the things that makes us so great. But it is kind of frustrating from, the standpoint of the average American to look at representation that doesn't really look like it represents them. And I feel like there's two things. One is you see a predominantly, older white male leadership in Congress and in Senate. There's not a lot of women. There's not a lot of people of color. There's not a lot of young people.
And I think that's the highest percent of voter turnout as well.
Exactly. So that's the whole thing is you have a bunch of, a small percentage of people making decisions that affect a large percentage of people. And then I feel like the other problem and the other reason people aren't inspired is because it's very disingenuous, because we all know that they don't represent us, they represent corporate interests. And ever since there was a Citizens United ruling, that was what opened the floodgates for corporate money and for, in my opinion, the hijacking of the political process by big money. And again, it's been proven. It's been proven that if the majority of the population wants something to happen, their vote doesn't matter. It's always going to go in the direction of where the money comes. The money sways the decisions far more than the people, and that's a problem, because if you can pump, if the Koch brothers or somebody from the left, one of the who's the one y'all. The
brothers are pretty much on the left.
Who's the one from, who's the one from the left?
George Soros.
There you go. If the Koch brothers or Soros can just dump all this money into a marketing campaign, I mean, the American people are very easy to persuade with good marketing and advertising. There's a reason people tune in to the Kardashians and things that aren't really that thought provoking, because we're a very soundbite culture. We have ADD. We definitely have attention ADD, and we also have I always say it's the United States of amnesia. We just forget. Yep. We forget about everything. So that's the whole thing is we're uninspired and we are not represented. The government's been bought, and it's hard to be motivated right now.
Well, I'm going to sort of oppose what you said, but at the same time, I'm going to just augment what you said. Okay. For every George Soros that you have out there on the left, or Tom Steyer, or
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates is sort of neutral. Yeah. You have somebody on the other side.
Yes.
There's a very big and deep problem with our system right now. And from my point of view, the media that heretofore has been relatively neutral is now so far either to the left or to the right that it confounds people.
Right.
And they don't know what to do. Money is part of the problem, but not the most egregious part of the problem, because, like I said, for every dollar that Tom Steyer and the other fellow, George Soros, thank you, puts in there, there's another one on the other side that puts that money in.
But it's still the interests of the super wealthy on this side and the super wealthy on this side, but the majority of the American population isn't super wealthy.
No, but it's a question of, and having been through the system, money is important.
Absolutely.
But the amount of money is not quite what makes it. What really makes it is, how do you communicate with the constituents that you want to serve and make sure that they get out to the polls? Now, Abraham Lincoln notoriously said, when he was running for the U.S. House of Representatives, said, in order to win an election, you have to, number one, know your voters, and number two, get them out to the polls. And you're not going to get them out to the polls by just flashing money. You're going to get them out to the polls by telling them and energizing them with what it is that you have to offer that's different from the other guy, and not just a sweet smile.
I agree, but it's also hard when you have the money to buy marketing and advertising, and people are very easy. That's one thing that's the one thing we've really noticed with social media and with the media. Like, people are very easy to manipulate. We know, like, the media knows how to make you angry. If they make you angry, they know how to get you bought in. If you're angry, you have an opponent. When you have an opponent, that's one of the reasons that the bipartisan bickering is so extreme right now, because the media has figured out how to weaponize it to where you're either hard left or you're hard right anymore. And if you're in the middle, you don't matter. Just shut up.
That's true. I would say this too. That you're very right on that issue, because when it comes down to the media, and I say this probably every show, the media has become the beast in the bed, the beast in the blanket. They have learned, and they've done this for eons. They've studied human behavior. They've studied our groupthink. They have studied how to manipulate us. So now they're using all this and weaponizing it against us, in the sense that they can do things like race baiting. They can literally throw out they can withhold things that they know would change the outcomes, just like when they withheld the footage, the body cam footage for the George Floyd deal. They knew exactly what would happen if they overcharged them, and now they're going to get off because they overcharged them, and because they didn't release that footage that would have given them the opportunity to for people to think correctly, and then not ask for the murder charge when all this information is coming forward now to let them know, hey, these people were acting under the guidance of what their rule books told them, outside of Derek Chauvin. But when these things are withheld, the media does a great disservice to the people, and I think they're doing a great disservice to the people now, because of the fact that they're willing to pit us against each other for every means that they have.
But you also have to be very, very careful that when you say the media, you're not saying your media, not my media.
I'm saying
because,
all media.
Well, I'm just saying there's a lot of people there's a lot of people that are like, man, those guys on the right, all they listen to is Fox News and Rush Limbaugh, and then they're over here listening to the equivalent on the left. And then there's a lot of guys on the right, they're like, man, it's all the media. And then whenever you ask the media, they say everything except Fox News.
It depends on which side you're on. It definitely depends on where you're sitting.
And that's the whole thing, is we have to be careful that we're not getting mad at the media while subscribing to media bias of our own.
And just as a corollary to that, Dustin and Chris, it really gripes me when I hear that the blame goes on one side for fully dividing this country. Really? It takes two to tango.
I agree. Yep. I agree.
And you wanted to bring this too far to your side, and you're blaming the other guy, and vice versa. What we need to do is we need to come together, and we need to realize that, and pardon me for saying this, but I object to the fact that America is a multicultural nation. No, it's not. It is a one cultural nation. We become multicultural, and the whole thing will just completely split apart. And look at what's happening right now in our nation. Everybody claims, well, this is my side. I'm black, or I'm Hispanic, or I'm Asian, and you're white. So, yeah, you create a multi-nation. when in fact we're all human and we're all American.
Right.
And that's who we are, and that's what we need to grasp about. It doesn't matter what we look out at. Some of us are ugly, some of us are good looking, and some of us are, You know, the
we're all
important thing
Americans.
is that we're all Americans, and we all have the same goals, and we're all based on the same ideals that the Declaration of Independence said that we, the citizens, are the sovereign, and we select our leaders, and we can pull them back if we want to, and if they dissatisfy us, because that's the rule. And we have now the Constitution that is based on those principles of the Declaration of Independence that grant us life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in all of the bills of right that have been passed.
Do you,
And go
Okay,
ahead.
go.
I'm sorry.
do you feel like we're kind of prisoners to the two-party system? Do you feel like having just these two extremes is one of the things that fuels this great divide that we're against? When you only have two, it's either here or here. I brought it up last podcast, the one before, and I still haven't been really fully educated on it. But are you familiar with the term ranked choice voting? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, I'm the oldest guy here.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I've seen the America that I'm talking about and what we should be. We were rather immature at the time, but there was a time when the only difference between one party and the other party was the side of the head that they combed their, excuse me,
Yeah,
combed their hair. That's all right. You'd be bipartisan.
He does it on
Right,
purpose.
I know. So anyway, I didn't mean to, but the whole idea was, you want to raise taxes or you don't want to raise taxes. Sometimes Republicans do it and the other side doesn't do it. But there was no loyalty higher than the loyalty to the country and to do right by the country.
Right.
And that's where we got to until all of a sudden people said, or one party said, to do right by the country, you have to do it exactly the way I tell you to do it. And the other side is saying the same thing. So what's divided us is not the idea that we're a changing nation. No, because somehow or other leadership failed. And leadership started to have us decide that, if you don't believe the way I do, you don't love your country. And if you don't believe the way you do, you don't love your country. It's the same thing with this voting thing and suppressing the vote. If you don't allow anybody on two legs to vote, then you're suppressing the vote. Yeah, but what about my right to vote?
What about being a citizen of this country
So-
and voting?
Correct.
I do kind of want to, challenge the idea on the money in politics again and kind of
Yeah.
go back to that because I know you said, it is one of the problems, but it's not the problem. And I know you're making the point that, there's money, but there's equal money on this side, and the money kind of balances out because there's money on both sides. But I still feel like that's the problem is that you make certain things profit driven. So if you look at, pharmaceutical decisions are made in the decisions of pharmaceutical profits, not in the best interest of people usually. A lot of environmental decisions are made in the best interest of oil and gas, profits as opposed to the environmental decision, benefit of a certain area. And you can go down the list. A lot of, if you look at defense contractors, a lot of money that goes, a lot of foreign policy decisions are, very heavily influenced by, money from Raytheon and, all those places. So I feel like that's the problem with the whole money infiltrating the system is it makes a lot of these things like prisons, war, healthcare profit driven when they should be more people driven. And I still feel like that's like the root of the problem.
Money.
That it exists, I agree. But that it is the root of the problem, it's not. It is a perceptual thing. And I'm going to tell you by being in Congress. Many times I disappointed some heavy donors because it was not the right thing to do. And I would go out there and explain to them and tell them, you know what, I'm with you 90% of the time, but this 10%, you're going to condemn me for it? So the whole idea is, and what I saw among both...
How long ago was that?
10 years ago.
Okay.
And what I saw at the time was that both sides had altruistic merit. They all believed deeply in what they were doing. You may have had one or two scoundrels on either side of the aisle, but by and large, they had their heart in the right place.
Do you think in the last 10 years, since you were in there compared to now, there's equal amount of time spent governing and trying to get money from donors, or do you feel like there's more time spent now ever before on running for re-election and basically fundraising as opposed to governing?
You have time to govern and time to raise money. And
But do you think it's changed in the last 10 years?
I can't tell you that. I can only tell you from my perspective of when I was there. You spend 1 or 2 days a week where you go into a room that's not government owned or anything, and you make calls to raise money. And going back to the energy that anybody has, or the inspiration that an elected official gives, that's what attracts money from either side. Not that they're going to get something back from it. And I'm going to tell you some very, very important thing. I had a meeting with a company in my district, a big company in my district that needed something, and I said, I'll look into it. The next day, I get flooded in with a lot of money. And the day after, I sent it back. And I said, you know what? That's against the law. I can't do that.
How much money was it?
Well, let's just say it was higher than 10.
Okay.
Not $10, but 10,000. So the idea that...
But do you think how many people are in your position that would make that same judgment call? And that's one of the problems. There's more money coming in. If you put more money in there, there's going to be more scoundrels. So when you put the money in there, you open the floodgates for scoundrels.
But remember, that money doesn't go into your pocket.
That's right.
That money doesn't go into your pocket. It goes towards campaigning and to disseminating your message. It doesn't go in your pocket, and if it goes in your pocket, you end up in jail.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of myth around it, and I see that the perception a lot of times with people that, hey, he's getting all this money just for being there. A lot of it has to go into his pocket. If one penny of it ends up in his pocket or appears to go in his pocket, he ends up in jail or the threat of jail.
This is very true. I can tell you for a fact because doing my other show, whenever we had candidates on, they were very, very strict. The elections commission was very strict about how the funds were attributed to the show and what people could actually pay for and actually how much we could charge. So you had to do a lowest common denominator. You charge somebody a certain amount, you have to charge everybody, even including their opponents, the same amount of money. And it had to be during primaries, it had to be a flat rate. And this is just with the radio. So this just dealing with commercial ads and things like that, or them being, you can't buy time on the radio. You have to do it's all these different ways to actually make it legal. So and that's with candidates paying for our time. And then going back the other direction is even more stringent because of the fact that they're so heavily watched. Their accounts are it's like being under a microscope. So the option, the more I would say, the more money they have, the more problems, the more opportunity for them to get caught up. So they actually shy away from that. And I don't know if people are finding more creative ways to do these things, but there's not as much of that as you would think going in that direction.
But I also just feel like, just from a voter standpoint, I feel like people just think it's outrageous that it even is billions of dollars going into a popularity contest. I mean, granted it's an election, but it's a $1 billion popularity contest. And I mean, it's one of those things when you think of, I think that's one of the problems people have with why, people get mad at, current states of capitalism in certain parts of the world, because you have a lot of people that take advantage. And it's just, people are frustrated when they see a product not being made that doesn't really bring value, and it's generating that much money. It's like, why is when there's still world hunger, when there's still infrastructure problems, when there's still all these issues, it's like, man, we don't have money for all, let's build a wall, but we can't,
But I'm going to speak to that. So when we're talking about capitalism and this product, I think capitalism is the product, and it has exported wealth around the world. So
My
capitalism.
problem is not with capitalism. My problem is with people look at it like, how much for an election? Why?
But that's-
why?
but that's
like,
what the-
like that seems like again too much money in it. Again, I just feel like the more money you dump into it, the more corruption you're going to get.
And that goes back to things such as why do we have to buy? Why does it cost so much for ad time? And why are we spending so much money? But that's all part and parcel of the product. And the problem is that they're using the medium that works. So it's kind of our fault that they have to spend this much money because we're asking them to wow us. We're asking them to inspire us, and we use the medium of TV or whatever ad. If it wasn't working, they wouldn't do it.
Why is it so hard to just like my biggest question is for again. You're right.
And
Perception.
I'm not arguing on that being a good thing. I actually think that people
Yeah.
should be elected on their merit, and that's why I don't respect anybody that comes out saying, "Hey, well, so and so's raised this much money for this." When it's what are they doing? What are they putting forward for us to
agree.
actually be governed upon? What are they bringing to the table? And that's one of the things that bothers me about. I mean, I don't even like the Super Bowl. Like when I look at the Super Bowl, I'm looking at it like, okay, well, it's fun to watch all these ads, but when you think about it, they're putting these ads together for us to either digest or for us to go buy their product. They're like, what? It's all part and parcel of this.
But marketing and capitalism 101, like it's both marketing and capitalism, is that there's only products for people that are willing to pay for that product. It's the same thing. Like
Well, somebody's willing to pull money
there's-
out of their pocket.
If there's going to be politicians that have millions and millions of dollars to spend on campaigning, there's going to be people that are going to be more than willing to take those millions and millions of dollars for their campaigning. So it's kind of one of those things that you're right. Perception is reality, and it's one of those things that if I'm a voter and I'm a citizen, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just get money out. Let's just take money out. Have your all contests, popularity contests. Let me see what your issues are. You don't need billion. You don't need all these ads. Like, let's
But
make
how would they get how would they get? I see what you're saying, and I agree.
There needs to be more of this. There needs to be more long form debate to where they get up and they just have conversations.
How would anybody see it?
Put it on YouTube. YouTube's free. That's the whole
Do you
thing.
think that's the problem because YouTube's free until that happens. And then everybody's going to have to pay for YouTube. Because
that's the whole thing. Get
somebody's
money.
gotta-
That's why you need to get money out. Make it to where it's a rule.
It's a beautiful thought, but you think about it like this: you can only keep money out until the lights need to come on.
And again, I'm not saying
but
I'm not saying
agree with what you're saying.
$0. I'm just saying there should be caps on this
Right.
sort of thing.
It should be a flat rate on what they should be able to spend and how they should be able to spend it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good
Do you
idea.
know how many people eat off of all that money spent in campaigns?
Everybody
An
all over
enormous
the line.
amount.
But what if that money went towards again fixing the country?
Well, isn't that fixing the country? You're creating jobs. You're moving the economy.
But you're also again putting the power of the vote into the corporation and out of the person's pocket. I don't want
What corporation?
Well, again, if a pharmaceutical company can lobby and spend money,
They're not allowed to
and
lobby candidates like that when they're running for office.
we all know that there's
That's hearsay. I'm gonna tell you right now.
we need an anti-corruption, but more than anything else, we need to get rid of all the backdoor stuff that goes on because we know everybody knows it happening. And again, you might have been a great person that turned away that money, but again, the more money you put in that system, the less people are going to be turning it away, and the more snakes are going to get in the grass. And I feel like that's the problem. If we can just get the money out, it would fix a lot of the problems. It's
One
the simplest
rotten
solution.
apple in a barrel will completely condemn the whole barrel of good apples. One. And I submit that, it gets extremely expensive, but it's money that's circulated around. There are rules and regulations that on limits. So, for instance, an individual can't give more than $2,800 to one candidate. So there are ceilings on that. So you're going to have to find
How do PACs and super PACs work? How do super
PACs
PACs
and
work?
super PACs are totally separated from the candidate.
How do they work?
And they
though?
cannot. Well, they just like you brought up that suit that allowed super PACs to create, but what it was a response to the unions that were able to do it and able to control that money going in. So what they did was that they allowed super PACs.
There's
And the way
groups of people, right?
right,
So this
super
was a
PACs
challenge to the union.
right, they collect money, but they cannot communicate in any way with the candidate or the campaign.
But you're still basically like a cheerleader for the candidate. Like you definitely have skin in the game. That's the whole thing.
I think that what he was saying is, so it's super PACs were the response to the unions, in the way that there was a problem that was developing.
I need an education because I'm a little lost on the union part.
So it sounds like, and I might be wrong, but it sounds like
Citizens United was the case.
So
Yes.
Citizens United what it sounds like the unions were developing their own super conglomerate of they were developing a monopoly on who had the ear of the candidate, and this was a response to challenge that in the way that they would offer different various groups of people to be able to come together under the guise of a super PAC to be able to push their agenda, but they cannot influence the candidate whatsoever directly.
All I'm
So-
saying is that made the system worse than it made it better. Yeah, you really just opened the floodgates for all that money, all that corruption. And again, I really just feel like, again, if you look at there's so many ways to lobby in pharmaceutical decisions, defense decisions, energy decisions, environmental decisions, to where it really takes the sway away from the regular voter.
Well, let me do this, and I grant you that what you feel, and I, in a certain sense, I agree with you that there are problems there, but more egregious right now is what's happening in our country, not just because we're very divided, but what's being pushed by the nation for an all mail-in ballot, and some states have adopted it. It's not going to work. It's going to overwhelm the systems. For instance, here in Texas, we have the only way that you can vote by mail is if you're 65 or older and you make an application, or if you have a disability that physically prevents you, or with somebody's aid, from going to the polls.
In some states, if you're like traveling on the day, and
Also in Texas.
if you're sick,
So if I'm going to go to France,
if you're sick, traveling, military deployed,
correct.
Okay,
Then you get absentee ballots for those.
And
those
what
are-
happens is that right now, the Attorney General of the state of Texas has spoken and said, this is state law, because every state has control of its voting mechanism.
yes,
That's state law, and you're violating it. But what you're having in some of the big cities, like either Dallas or Houston or even in San Antonio, is they're turning their back on the idea that if you want to say that you are afraid of the virus, the COVID virus, then you've got a disability and vote. But let's see what's happening there. Now, besides violating Texas law, what's happening then is that you're going to be flooding these county elections offices, and you're going to be delaying the vote.
yeah.
On top of that, you're going to be flooding, and one of the questions here is you're going to be flooding the mail system that oftentimes, doesn't
They're not getting
respect
things there
bulk
right now.
mail.
My opinion on this issue kind of swayed a little bit, to be honest. I was pretty much like, yeah, what's the big deal? Mail in, and then one of my good friends works for UPS, and he's an engineer for them, and he was kind of telling me like, yeah, it's gonna be a lot. Right. And I was like, okay, that kind of like swayed me a little bit. And then I saw and again, I always try to like, get both sides, but I saw a thing on CNN where they interviewed somebody at a polling station in Colorado. Right. And this guy was talking about how their systems are in check, and it was a real impressive thing where I'm like, oh yeah, they totally got it together. But my immediate follow-up thought was, that's that one spot in the country that might have a really good system, training, a protocol, everything in line. But I'm okay. Does the rest of the country have that right now? Right. So it did kind of like change my opinion. Now, I was looking into, so there's the mail-in voting to where everybody gets mail. Now, what about the option to where if you wanted to do a absentee ballot, it's on the table, but not get it to where everybody is just automatically given a mail-in vote?
Right. Well, absentee ballot in Texas is the same as mail-in ballot. Okay?
Yes.
You have to apply for it.
Okay.
But here's the biggest problem. And remember, I've seen it firsthand, where you're going along on a national election and you've got all these people that are registered to vote and you're knocking on doors and they're telling you, no, we're not citizens. We don't vote. And I go, well, your name's on the voting voting list.
They got a ballot.
And says, well, they come by and ask us to vote, and we sign something and give us our opinion.
And the ballot harvest.
House after house after house after house in an area that had more than 100,000 people. Yep. Here's what happens, and tell you another story. Two ladies from my side of the party, but they went to the class conducted by the county on how to register voters. There were about 100, 150 other people there, two from the other side. And they went out very energized. Why? Because they have been promoted to say, your quota is X amount of people that you get registered to vote. Don't ask if they're citizen or not. It's none of your business. And when they bring those ballots back or those registrations back in, before it goes to the office, they take note of the name and address so that when election time comes, they request the ballot, they warehouse the ballots, and they vote them. And that happens time and again. Imagine now, with this disease or this pandemic going on right now, how much more it's going to increase. So the problem in our election system is, number one, the registration process. The idea that has been inculcated in the mind of, and I will say this, ignorant people or partisan people that say that you are suppressing the vote if you dare to ask for citizenship. Well, heck, if you don't have the right to vote, you've got no business being signed up for it.
Right.
And you've got to be able to prove that you are a citizen. When you come into the country, coming in from France or from Mexico or whatever, you have to prove that you're a citizen. Otherwise, you can't come in. So the whole idea and the base of all this is the rush to get all your voters in to get them registered to vote. That's great. But when your voters are anybody on 2 legs, some people on 4 legs, people that don't exist, people that are 6 feet under, and then those grandmas and great-grandmas and grandpas that are in the in old folks' homes that don't even know who they are anymore, and somebody goes in there and forces their signature to vote, or they get somebody to go in there and count all those votes. So we've got gaping holes in our quote-unquote mail-in ballots / absentee ballot system.
I almost feel like it's just a huge lack of technological creativity, in my opinion. Because again, we're in the digital age, and it's one of those things. It's like, okay, cool. Again, if I can have banking information via an app on my phone, why is Apple so successful? Because they have great usability. It's simple, it's easy to use, and it's streamlined across the board. And that's the way national voting should be. Like, why is it complicated? Why are all these different? Again,
I think it's the verification part.
I was just about to say that. So I want to bring this up for this is one of the major issues that we have. So signatures have to be verified. And this is, I would say, the crux of the whole argument about a mail-in ballot. And I'll come back to the digital certificates as well. But those are easy enough in themselves to hack or to fabricate or to recreate for nefarious purposes. But more to the point,
what if your signature is your fingerprint?
Those can be hacked too. Those can be hacked just as easy. So this is the thing. But what we're looking at right now, and why we shouldn't think about doing, I mean, we should think about updating our systems. We definitely should, because that's.
Well, I think you could start like at DPS.
But hold on though. The problem that we have now is signatures, physical signatures, because I can tell you right now that there are more ballots that are thrown out or miscounted simply because of signatures. There are people. If you saw the process, and I've seen the process. If you saw the process of the way that they have to validate signatures, and it's literally matching them line by line.
Again, why can't it be a thumbprint? Even on the polls, why can't it be a thumbprint? Because again, they can scan fingerprints.
Well, it could be a
Your
s-
signature can signatures can change. A thumbprint's a fingerprint's a fingerprint. Why can't it be a fingerprint?
Well, that's the thing. That's okay. So are we talking before we go to moving it to a digital? We're talking right now about what's happening with the. I think that's a good issue that we could actually use as a segue into the solution. But right now, what we're looking at is them trying to, or this issue of them trying to push mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots cannot be verified with the high enough accuracy.
So what do we do right now as a solution to this issue right now for, say, this election?
In-person voting.
Right.
In-person voting.
And every one of us has gone to the grocery store.
Yep.
And every one of us walks in with a mask. And everybody
People
walks
go
in.
where they feel like they need to go. We need to be
Correct.
like South Africa after apartheid and go where you need to go. You need to go vote.
So
You need to
again,
go vote.
so that's all fine and dandy. But if you want everyone to go vote, make it a national holiday.
Well, fine. That's great.
Well,
Yes,
no, but
we should-
but it hasn't happened yet. Well, like why? Hasn't that happened
Actually,
yet?
hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. So right now in San Antonio, all schools are on holiday for election day. Just I don't know if y'all knew that, but I got a mailer from my son's school. I got an email saying that all the schools are going to be actually closed during election day, and I think that during that period because that is going to be a time for them. They use the guise of it so that they can disinfect or do whatever, and it'll just be low traffic. But I think this is an important segue into what's actually coming on the horizon.
If there was a bill designated to make Election Day a federal holiday, would you support it?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I
course.
think. I mean,
So,
I
there,
think
so there's a bill called Democracy Day that you all should support. Your boy Bernie Sanders presented it, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I looked it up. Bernie Sanders is one of the ones that was really pushing for
Not
it to
my
be
boy,
a.
by the way.
And you know who else supported it too? Was Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang was also pushing that as part of his platform whenever he was running for office. But again, I mean, you got to make it.
You think I hate Democrats, don't
No,
you?
I just like getting our time. No, but it's one of those things. Again, if you're gonna say, okay, cool, you need to be there to vote, cool, make it to where people can be there to vote.
Right.
Because right now you want people to be there to vote, and on a Tuesday, I mean,
Why are we not talking about it? Just having it on a Saturday.
either one.
Yeah, I mean,
either
it could be a national holiday or just on a Saturday.
but at the same time, though, again, national holiday makes more sense because there's people that work on Saturdays.
Right.
Service
And the
industry works on
Saturday is the
Saturdays.
Sabbath, it's
yeah,
Shabbat.
Saturday. It just makes sense to have it on Monday. Give everybody a 3-day
nobody
weekend.
wants to be
a
at
Monday
work
or
anyway,
Friday.
so-
A Monday or a Friday.
Oh.
3-day weekends. People love 3-day weekends.
Yeah, either way.
At the
Yeah.
Texas Public Policy Foundation, what our goal is, in order to find solutions that are going to make voting easy, making it easy to vote, but very hard to cheat it. And right now, we're not doing either. We're making it hard to vote, and we're making it
Easy to cheat.
easy to cheat. and that's wrong. And what really gripes me is that you've got one side that has traditionally benefited from this, and the other side that has cowered from saying anything about it, even though it's existed for such a long time. And nothing gets done that way. And I want to go back in history. Remember how then Senator Lyndon Baines Johnson was elected? It was Box 13. And remember how John F. Kennedy was elected? It was Chicago's Mayor Daley who played with the ballots. Voting fraud and voting crookedness has existed for a long, long time. Heck, Andrew Johnson, when he ran for election, he used to go to the polls with a big old barrel of booze, of whiskey,
It's like the
and get
political-
everybody liquored up.
I
like they
actually,
do
so I,
Sounds like a
I
party.
that was actually in my notes.
You know they're still
Well,
doing that
well,
too, right?
well, and to be honest,
The
and
politiqueros?
that's why I say they said back in the day it was an unofficial holiday. People would still take off work and they would go get drunk and they would eat, and it was like a party.
Yeah.
And we've kind of gotten away from it. It's kind of one of those things you got to go vote instead of enjoying the fact that you have the opportunity to go vote.
Right.
But again, I think it's because we have become a culture that works a lot more than we used to. We have longer hours. Some people work 2 jobs. People do overtime. It used to be, you had a 9-to-5 job and that was it. So I feel like a lot of people are overworked. and again,
And they don't have I don't think they have the information. Like
Yes.
Well,
what's
there's
on,
a
what's
lot
on
of
the
low-
ballot.
Well,
There's
and again,
definitely a lot of low
well,
information
that's where
voters
that's why I was making the Apple reference. Again, if there's if you can't beat them, join them. And technology's taking over. People are attached to their phones. There's apps for everything.
also a problem,
No,
too.
it is a problem. It is a problem, but use it to help democracy.
Right.
Don't fight against it. Use it to help democracy. Get it to where there's more visibility, there's more connectivity, and it's more user friendly. Because again, right now,
tell you something.
it's kind of like the same thing in the classroom. If you still are trying to,
use the assembly line.
if you're not
type of-
if you're not including digital media as part of the classroom setting, again, not completely succumbing to it, but it should be part of the learning environment because we live in a digital media world, and it's the same thing with technology, all across the board. And that's the thing with we're talking about the signature thing. Get rid of signatures. Have a fingerprint. Problem solved.
I can tell you what the damage would be done, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm telling you what the damage will be done on.
Isn't
we're
that what
still
your
dealing
driver's license is for, though?
So what we're still
That's what I'm saying. They have your fingerprints on record. So
Right.
all you do is when you go to vote, cast your vote, put a little print, and then you can. There's things that scan fingerprints way better than you can scan a signature because signature changes. Your fingerprint doesn't.
Biometrics is. I mean, we
Problem
do facial,
solver right here, buddy.
recognition on our phone
I like
anyway.
it.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good idea. So this is what I'm looking at right now is that the problem with going fully digital on anything right now is that our digital systems are so compromised. Our digital systems are actually more compromised than our regular voting system. And when you look at it from the standpoint of election interference from other countries, China's digging in our guts right now. Whether it comes to digital theft or
You're not doing TikTok
election-
videos no more, bro.
I never have been. I did one, and
Oh, I never even
I
did.
never
one.
do anymore.
Compromise,
You lost your
man.
man
I know,
card.
compromise,
Did one?
right? I've deleted my account. But the thing is that we're so compromised digitally that moving anything to a digital form right now in this burgeoning digital age would be a mistake because we have no means to protect ourselves. If we knew, and I've seen these things right now. If we're looking at what is actually available, I guarantee you, each one of us has been compromised on some level when it comes to the black market or our personal information. So anybody can get our digital signature or anything, even our fingerprints are available online.
I agree with you, and that was one. Again, I'm not saying it's a solution right now, but it is
should work towards
inevitable solution. Because everything I was reading up on, they're all saying there are some flaws, and because even blockchain, I was like, I've heard really good things about blockchain being promising for
I like
security, and they were even saying that blockchain is not secure yet, but that it will be eventually.
But let me just say two things about all this because I think it's important to note. First of all, going back to mail-in ballots, even here in Texas, if you go to the polls today, you have to show your voter registration card and your driver's license with a picture. When you vote by mail, even if you are a citizen and you're registered to vote and all that, you don't show any voter ID.
All they have is that signature,
Right.
and that is a
And that's a
that's
serious
minefield.
problem. The other thing too is that going back to all the digital and all this other stuff, I understand, and we still have a lot of maturity to go through with regards to the digital age. But look at what's happened to all of us during this COVID crisis. We're going stare crazy staying at home. We need human contact. If we don't have that human contact, and I can tell you a very sad story. My mother-in-law died two months ago. And she had been in an old folks home for a year, but when this COVID hit, my wife and her sister and her brother, the only way they could see their mother was through a glass window. And isn't that a shame that we are now subjecting our children to a very inhumane thing about lack of human contact? So if you're going to go to school, you've got to have those kids interact with other kids and with teachers.
Right.
Yeah, you can have a computer in the classroom and learn about all that stuff. But human contact, we cannot rise above being human. It's impossible. There's a ceiling there because we're human.
Well, and the problem with that is it's been going on for a long time. There's been a lack of human contact between kids and their parents for a while now, and the TV and the iPad and the phone have become the parent. And the reason is because parents have to work a lot more. again, the idea that
was
you
the
can,
idea, though,
yeah, I mean, think about it. Think about the cost of education 30 years ago. Think about the cost of a house 30 years ago. Think about wages 30 years ago. And then if you look at it now, I mean, the American dream, I mean, hold on.
Okay.
Well, and that's why I always laugh when people say like unemployment's down. And it's like, okay, cool. It doesn't matter if everybody has a job if they need 3 jobs to barely, support one kid. And it's like, I don't care if there's all these jobs, if they're crap jobs and no one's making any money. And that's the whole thing is I feel like we have a very unskilled workforce and we really haven't adapted with the times. If you look at other countries, we're really falling behind in digital stuff. We're really falling behind in sciences and technology. We're really falling behind in a lot of these innovative areas. Other countries are kicking our ass.
It's crazy.
You look at Germany, you look at parts
of
of Asia, we are falling behind. This is totally side topic, but a little fun story. If y'all haven't watched F1, Formula One, it's just kind of funny. You look at all the F1 teams and all the F1 tracks all across the world, and you see the one in like Beijing and the one in like Rio de Janeiro and the one in Singapore, and then they show the one in Austin. And the one in Austin, it's cool compared to what we see, but compared to the F1 circuit, it's like the total scrub of the bunch. But anyway, yeah, I just feel like we need to definitely get a little bit caught up and be a little more competitive.
We are I feel like we are definitely working towards a lot of the wrong goals when it comes to innovation. We seem to not be able to take cues from other countries because we've fallen into the grips of not being producers. We had a period where we weren't producing hardly anything, and now we're trying to get back to that. I feel like we're reaching a point where we're bringing those types of jobs back. We're actually coming back to the table and manufacturing more things here. Because right now, as it stands, we get 95% of the things that we use and own from China. I can't think of one thing in my hand right now that probably doesn't have made in China in it. I know this pen and this phone does, but the thing is, we need to grab that back from China, and I think that slowly but surely we are.
What's been kind of cool though, comparing the consumer of 20 years ago and the consumer of today, like the younger, like the millennials and some of the younger, people are 20s and 30s even, is if you look at like the 20 to 30 age bracket and you look at the the boomers and the older population, is for a while American consumer was just buy a bunch of stuff. You would buy a house and fill it with stuff, and we were buying very often not the best quality things. And I feel like now where the younger generations don't want to buy a bunch of stuff and they want more sustainability and they want more quality.
Well, one thing
a perfect example is beer. There's a reason that people are really going towards like craft beer, and there's a reason people are going towards craft things, or even carpentry. People want the thing that's like hand carved now, and we want to. And I feel like people are kind of pushing away from like the giant corporations just put out a bunch of crap. Even look at toys. For the longest time as a kid, back in the 80s, you just get a bunch of crap, and I see parents nowadays kind of like not getting as much random just junk.
You get you the best game console.
Well, it's you can see it throughout a lot of culture though. Like I feel like we're tired of rinse, wash, repeat junk. Politicians, products. We want more quality again, and I feel like that's the fact that we are in a digital age and we see other countries that have cool things. I hate when people say like, yes, we're the greatest country in the world, but I hate when I see a country that's got some really cool stuff. Why do we not have high speed rail? Right. Come on, like we're America. We're supposed to have cool stuff. We don't have some stuff that other countries are a little bit ahead on.
I agree with that when it comes to technology, and when you look at China and the things that they have. It pisses me off because I see a lot of but then I know that came at a cost because their digital innovation came at the forfeiture of all of their freedoms, all of their rights, and all of their they're just now opening up to the idea of doing things that we've been doing for years upon years, but yet they're so used to not having any freedom that secret police can come in and snatch
what about don't compare us to China then? What about comparing us to Germany?
First of all, Germany has always had very high quality things.
Yes, true.
But I follow the international markets in Germany and France and Turkey and other places. And I will tell you that Turkey, even though within the EU, it is top notch, it's really having some serious problems.
Okay.
Very serious problems, economically and otherwise. It has a huge amount of immigrants by the millions that came in over the last 5 years, and they're completely destroying their economy and their ability to perform the way they did. But I just want to finish up by saying that, wealth and economic strength is transitory. Freedom and liberty and rights of individuals and responsibilities of individuals, because for every right you have to have a responsibility, those are eternal. And there is no substitute for the types of freedoms and liberties that we have in this country, despite whether we are on top or whether we have a high-speed rail or this and that and the other. The most important and most cherished thing, and why people are trying to get in and stealing to get into this country, is because of those very, very hallmark things, which is freedom, liberty.
I think that's a good closing point right there.
Indeed.
Great talk.
Indeed.
So,
Found the common ground.
yeah.
Liberty being the common ground.
So, Kiko Canseco, thank you very much for joining us.
It was a pleasure being here, and I
flew by,
enjoyed the
man.
talk. Yes.
That
Good
flew
conversation.
by. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for joining us on Talk Common Ground.
See y'all.
Peace.